Episode 12, Become a Multidimensional Dominatrix with Mistress Damiana, Ph.D. Welcome to Lightworkers Who Play in the Dark, where we bring the darkness into the light. I'm your host, Mistress Damiana, and I have been a professional dominatrix for over 2 decades. I'm also a certified sexologist and a kink life coach. I hold a Ph.D. and a master's degree in psychology. I am the founder of the Evolutionary Dominatrix Academy and the creator of Conscious Kink Community. These podcast episodes will feature different themes like Q&As, where I answer kink-related questions from my listeners, topic interviews with people in the BDSM community, and FemDom psychodrama scenes, in which I dominate a submissive while you listen in, as we get into some dom space and subspace together. Now, let's get on with the episode. The following episode was recorded for the Sex, Sin, and Sensibility Podcast, hosted by Miss Drea and sweetgirl Julia, which I highly recommend to my listeners as a valuable resource for high-quality BDSM and kink education. You can find it on all major podcast players. I was invited as a guest on their show, and they were kind enough to grant me permission to republish the episode here to share with my audience. In this episode, we discuss the contents of my new book, The Dominatrix Archetypes, Become a Multidimensional Dominatrix in the Art of BDSM FemDom. We explore what the 4 archetypes within a dominatrix are, and how each archetype serves to connect with the individual needs of every submissive to create well-rounded and balanced scenes within the course of a BDSM session. This interview was a fun one because one of the hosts, sweetgirl Julia, is a personally collared slave of mine and also one of the submissive coaches in the Evolutionary Dominatrix Academy, where we work together to mentor women in the art of female domination. Julia provides valuable insight about the importance of each archetype from the submissive perspective. We discussed on how I first started out on my dom journey, experiencing my first dom high, the importance of domination language, domination energy, and domination personalization, how evolutionary dominatrices are lightworkers who play in the dark, why I feel that being a dominatrix is the biggest self-love exercise that you can do, and other juicy topics. I want to thank Miss Drea and Julia for hosting this beautiful episode and for their graciousness in allowing me to share it with you. I hope you will gain value from it. Enjoy.
Welcome back to Sex, Sin, and Sensibility. I'm your host, Ms. Drea DeVille.
I'm your co-host, sweetgirl Julia.
We are so excited to welcome back Mistress Damiana, Ph.D., author, professional dominatrix, teacher, mentor, and friend, here to tell us all about her long-awaited book, The Dominatrix Archetypes, Become a Multidimensional Dominatrix in the Art of BDSM FemDom. It's available on Audible, Amazon, or thedominatrixarchetypes.com. Welcome back.
I am so happy to be back and so honored to be back speaking with you. Thank you so much, Ms. Drea and Julia.
For those that don't know, let me give a little bit of your background. Mistress Damiana, Ph.D., has been a professional and lifestyle dominatrix for over 25 years in Los Angeles, where she owns and runs the Chi Temple, an elegantly appointed private BDSM studio. She holds a Ph.D. in clinical psychology, an M.A. in counseling psychology, B.A. in behavioral sciences, and is a certified sexologist specializing in kink-centered life coaching. She is the author of The Dominatrix Archetypes, Become a Multidimensional Dominatrix in the Art of BDSM FemDom, host of Lightworkers Who Play in the Dark podcast, and the creator of ConsciousKinkCommunity.com. Mistress Damiana is the founder of the Evolutionary Dominatrix Academy, where she personally mentors women online worldwide in the art of conscious female domination. Her teachings are strongly rooted in traditional FemDom, enhanced with her psychologically based, holistic domination framework, the Dominatrix Archetypes, as well as an in-depth focus on submissive psychology. The marriage of her psychological background and passion for the BDSM arts gave birth to her evolutionary teachings, taking FemDom to a new level of excellence, connection, and joy. And you can connect with Mistress Damiana Chi at damianachiphd.com, which is soon going to be updated to be an all-inclusive website to everything Mistress Damiana Chi. Her academy can be reached at academy.theevolutionarydominatrix.com. The book, the Dominatrix Archetypes.com. On socials, primarily Instagram, Damianachi Ph.D. Welcome.
Thank you so much, sweet girl Julia.
So let's go back a little bit. We had you on before, and we always want to go back into history a little bit and just kind of find out where your journey started into BDSM. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember that your sister actually kind of introduced you into this world. And can you just kind of give us a reminder on how that took place?
Yes, sure. So my sister, so this was like, I would say like 1996 or something like that. My sister met a guy who was, he wanted to be her like quote unquote slave. And they used that term, but all he really did was like run errands for her and things like that, like really little things. But she called him her slave, and I was like, "Wow, that's cool." And then at the same time, I was in my master's program for counseling psychology, and I was given an assignment by one of my classes, and the assignment was pick a disorder from the DSM-4. At the time, it was the DSM-4, the fourth edition of the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. So I was to pick a disorder and write on it. And I thought, okay, so all these other disorders don't really interest me. I wasn't into psychopathology, but one of them was sexual masochism. Sexual masochism was considered a mental disorder at the time, and it was in the book. And so I was like, well, I'm interested in that, just from an intellectual standpoint, really. You know, I'd never done anything BDSM, but I was like, you know, I can interview this guy. That's my sister's slave. So that's what I did. I interviewed him, and then I wrote about the disorder, and then I interviewed him and had him speak to me about it. And what intrigued me was that he did not sound mentally ill at all. He sounded very intelligent. What he said to me made sense. And so I was fascinated, like, this is really interesting. And what he's saying to me makes more sense than what the book is saying, which is you are a sick, person who has a mental disorder, And so I started writing more papers on it in my master's program. I think maybe I wrote 3 or something during that, the time I was in that program. And then I went on to write a doctoral dissertation in my PhD program all about it. It was like a 350-page doctoral dissertation, and it was called The Erotically Submissive Man. So I came into the world from an intellectual, like academic way, so that's very kind of unusual. But throughout this time, I was also playing with this guy, my sister's slave. So I don't know if you want me to repeat that story of how that started. I believe I told you in the other podcast.
Yeah, I mean, because it's hot. Yeah.
Brief. Sure. Okay. So so this slave of hers, when I interviewed him, it was only on the phone. I hadn't met him yet. And whatever it was, several weeks after that, my sister and I were living together at the time, and we had to move. And so she said, hey, when you come back from work, I was working as an administrative assistant in a corporal environment at the time, while I was putting myself through graduate school. So she said, just keep your high heels on when you come home from work. And when you see him, just order him around. That's all. I was like, oh, okay. Sounds easy enough. So when I came home, he was there in the living room of our home, wearing nothing but panties, packing boxes. And my reaction was, oh, wow, look at this. I'd never seen anything like this before. It was fascinating. It was kind of titillating, he seemed really timid. And so I didn't say anything to him for whatever it was, about an hour. He was just working away. And then he said to my sister, Miss, may I use the bathroom? And she said, yes, but you have to go sit on the toilet like a girl. And so he went over to the bathroom, and I was curious to see if he would obey her, right? So I followed him unknowingly. He didn't know I was following him, but I was following him. And sure enough, he was sitting there on the toilet peeing. And I could see him because the door was cracked open a bit. It was like a couple inches. And so I just threw the door open, wide open, and I said, you don't get any privacy. And he looked at me all frightened. He just looked up at me, as he was sitting on the toilet, looking up at me all frightened and just like, oh, with this kind of submissive look on his face, in his eyes. And it just gave me that was the first time I ever remember getting like a Dom thrill, like a little brief spurt of a Dom high, right? I didn't know that's what it was at the time, but it gave me a thrill to make him like that. So to make him frightened of me, to make him look at me so submissively and all of that. So I wrote about this in the book too. Like this was my first ever Dom high. But so after that, he was like, well, Miss, I think you have something here. Would you like to play with me too? I'll clean your home for $50. And I was like, sure, score. So $50. So, that was my very first, quote unquote, pro-dom session where I made $50 for him doing domestic work for me.
That's awesome.
That's how it started. And then I played with him for a couple years before I actually sought out mentors in the BDSM community. At that time, it wasn't even called BDSM. It was SM back in that day. But then, I eventually found mentors who trained me in the dungeon skills after that.
Yeah, I love that story. Watching men pee with panties around their ankles just brings joy.
Oh yes, it sure does.
It does. And it really does.
As a matter of fact, I have a rule for sweet girl Julia, who happens to be my personal slave, that she must pull down her panties and sit on the toilet and pee like a girl every time. Every time she goes to the bathroom.
Every
I trust
single
she
time.
does. Yes.
No matter where I am. It's actually gotten to the point I've been doing it so long, I don't even think about it anymore. It's just, that's the way I do it now.
See, and there you go. Perfectly conditioned.
Like, why did I ever do it standing up? Because all that splatter and the urine around the toilet, right?
It makes no sense.
See?
Right.
Because there is no perfect aim. I'm just going to tell you right now.
Exactly.
There just isn't.
Exactly.
It's so much more efficient. I love that. That actually takes me into my next question, and we'll let Julia chime in a little bit too. Mistress Damiana, when you were last here, we got really in depth and discussed your Evolutionary Dominatrix Academy. which continues to be wildly successful with students attending not just from the United States, North America, from all over the globe. And Julia is one of your sub-coaches at the Academy. Do you want to give just kind of a quick overview of what the Academy is, and then Julia can explain a little bit what a sub-coach is and does?
The Evolutionary Dominatrix Academy is something that is a program that I created to teach female domination online. And the way this works, and the reason why it works, is because the art of domination is mostly psychological and verbal and energetic. When, let's say, a woman is flogging her submissive. If she's flogging her submissive, but not verbally dominating him or her, she's just flogging. She's actually just topping. But if she adds in the DS element, then it becomes domination. So FemDom is female domination. And so I teach the art of domination, which is mostly verbal, psychological, energetic. And that's why this works. And it has taken all these students' level of their domination skills exponentially improve from this type of training. And what makes it so different is that they learn the whole art of domination, which includes knowledge of submissive psychology. And I've always been a person I've always studied submissive psychology. That is what actually got me interested in BDSM and in female domination. Is that, remember that first slave? I interviewed him and I was fascinated about the way what makes him tick, what turns him on, things like that. So really and truly, I've been so interested in the submissive side of things, the submissive psychology, that I created a framework based around the submissive psychology, which is the Dominatrix Archetypes. And so the Dominatrix Archetypes, which is 4 archetypes within a dominatrix, there are 4 different styles of domination that integrate and work with each other within the course of a session. They are actually created to blend with, I don't want to say the word cater to, but it's to customize your domination to who you are dominating. That's an absolute must, right? I mean, you, Miss Drea, as a dominatrix you've been practicing the art for many, many years, you know this. We know this. Any true dominatrix knows that you must know the psychology of the submissive. So that is why there's so much emphasis in submissive psychology. I have 4 sub-coaches in my academy who I've handpicked, selected, who I have also trained. They know the archetypes like they know them so well. They've known these archetypes like the back of their hand for many years now, because they've been in the workshops with me. They've been in the academy for this is the 4th year, I believe. So without the submissives, the experienced submissives sort of explaining their sides of things, I'm not going to be able to teach the full art form of domination. So I'm teaching both sides of the coin, the domination and the submission, and the psychology of both in this academy. So Julia, do you want to explain some of your duties as a sub-coach in the academy?
Yes, Mistress. This is, first I want to say it's such an honor to be able to do this, to be able to impart whatever knowledge that I've had and the other sub-coaches have had to new doms who are learning how to do this, because it is completely unique. I've never seen other programs that use submissives to tell what we know. And one of the things about us 4 sub-coaches is we're really indicative of the fact that every submissive is different. Each of us subcoaches comes at it from kind of maybe slightly different perspective or a completely different perspective. And we're able to, with the students in the academy, they will demonstrate, they'll do a fishbowl where Mistress Damiana will give feedback, and then each of us will give feedback based on our perspective. And as Mistress Damiana said, we've been trained to know the archetypes, to know the psychology, and we come at it from that perspective while also from our own perspective. And I think it's incredibly valuable because you'll hear things come out of my mouth, hear things come out of one of the other subcoaches' mouth that are like, oh, well, to me, this hit this way. And I don't think you get that anywhere else.
Mm-hmm. You know, what's so interesting is that we're always in agreement. You know, like me and all four subcoaches, we all see things the same way. For example, when one of the students dominates in what I call a fishbowl, where everyone's looking on, I'll give my critique, and then the subcoaches will also give their critiques, their feedback, and our overall opinions agree, but then the individual perspectives are given, you know, if that makes sense.
It's amazing how in sync we are.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting to do it that way. One, you're not taking the road of ego over everything, which can happen, right? Where it's just this assumptive close that was great scene. I did fantastic because I've been doing this for years. And because that happens, you know, that does happen. And you're also learning that customized approach because you have 4 different submissives with different needs, different interests, and different ways that they tick. Right. And so you're learning to tap into that and learning that you got to tap into that in different ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, for example, we have a subcoach named LP who's always bringing in the dirty talk aspects of things. And so, and he always brings up these, hey, you know, what about saying things in this way? It's a little dirtier, a little more exciting to hear this from a dom. And then Julia will come in and, you know, often Julia, you'll comment on, you know, the tone, someone's tone or something like that. And then Greg will come in with some practical advice. And Stacy's very intellectual. So it's very interesting how, you know, they bring in these layers of, you know, ways that you can enhance your domination and make it better in all these different ways. But if somebody's coming across, say, like not dominant enough, we will all kind of be in agreement about that. And so our critiques and feedback we will convey that in our own way, you know, how we can provide some suggestions on how they can improve and things like that.
I think one of the things that makes the Academy so successful is that you mentioned ego, Miss Drea.
Mm-hmm.
We're all, including Mistress Damiana, we're all coming at it like we don't know everything. Mm-hmm. And we are all open to learning more. I learn from the other subcoaches, and Mistress Damiana is always talking about how she's always learning from us, from her students. Mm-hmm. And that makes such a rich learning atmosphere that everybody is enthusiastic about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. I think the way it feels to the student is that we're kind of like, we're partners along your journey. Mm-hmm. You know, we're facilitating it, guiding it.
Yeah. And the students that we had on with you, the last episode, I mean, that was really kind of the sense that I got too, is, whether they were new to the craft or not, they really felt like it was an absolute safe space to explore, to ask questions, to learn, to make mistakes, learn, and really hone their craft in every way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do believe that we have created a very safe space for the students to explore and experiment and just really just let their Dom flag fly and feel safe about, saying whatever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that. Well, but this is not why we're here to talk today, but I definitely wanted to touch on that because I just think it's fantastic what you put together, and I'm excited to see that continues to flourish.
Thank you.
We're here to talk about the book that you put out just in time for DomCon LA, the Dominatrix Archetypes. So let's get into this. Why write this book now? And is the information in the book different from the teachings at the Academy?
Mm-hmm. Well, I wanted to write the book to get the information out on a broader scale because I want the world to understand what a true dominatrix is, which is a multidimensional dominant woman. A dominatrix has been kind of like stereotyped and put in a category of, cruel, mean, wears a black catsuit, sort of like that. That's the mainstream view of a dominatrix, right? And that's one view. But as we are all multidimensional beings, our DOMs are all going to be different. Like our DOM personas are all going to be different. And then within that DOM persona, we have many layers of different moods that we get into when we are dominating. So, and this is something they are archetypes. And what an archetype is it is an innate energy that's within all of us. And so even though I've written the book to sort of guide women on discovering the DOMs within themselves, and that's how I wrote the book, Become a Multidimensional Dominatrix. So I really do guide the readers on how to become and develop and embody their inner DOMs and their inner multidimensional DOM. I also made this book accessible for everyone else who is interested on the subject of domination. So for a submissive, for example, reading a book like this they're going to be educated about how, mostly, I think, on what ethical domination is. And when you're submissive and you are being dominated by a dom, and she, let's say that she just, I've heard this scenario many times. Some submissives play with the dom, and then they feel like the dom doesn't see them as an individual person. She's doing some sort of cookie cutter domination thing. I've even heard that doms will do other things other than what they asked for on them, just because that's what they know how to do. And then they were like, well, you take it because I'm dominating you, right? I don't care that you don't like, being fucked in the ass. I'm gonna, put this big dildo up your ass anyway. I mean, that's happened. And that's still happening over and over and over everywhere around the world, unfortunately. So I want submissives to learn that is not okay. And also being treated like, let's say a dom is belittling you because that's what she thinks domination is, and that's what her domination style is. But if that sub isn't turned on by that and it's not his kink, then it's wrong, and it's not consensual, it's not ethical. And so that's why I teach that's why it's important for submissives to read this book too, because it speaks to why it's important to craft sessions when knowing who the submissive is and understanding their kinks and fetishes and psychology and everything else. And there are levels of everything that they can take. Yeah, and also if you're a male dom, you can very well read the book and adapt the archetypes into the male versions. It's easy to do that because they're archetypes. But I wanted to write the book in honor of traditional femdom. So that is why I'm speaking to doms, female doms.
Yeah.
In the book.
I'm glad that you mentioned about the male dom, because that was one of my questions for you, is if this, can be applicable.
Very.
And, as we get into it more, and I've been listening to the audio version, it is. For sure.
Yes. And I have met male doms who say, yes, I could, experienced male doms who say, I definitely recognize all of these archetypes in me. So it works. It works. The 4 archetypes meaning so let me just to clarify, the 4 archetypes within a dominatrix are the authoritarian, the seductress, the mother, and the queen. And so the male versions can just authoritarian, seductor, daddy, and king. They're the same.
So can you go a little into the archetypes, and for listeners that are not familiar with this, how do you identify? How do you know what you fall into? How to lean into an archetype?
Yeah. So how it starts is, I'm just going to talk about doms, female doms, just because it's just easier to just speak to in the terms of femdom.
Yeah.
So when you're a dom and you're starting out on your dom journey, most likely there will be one archetype that comes out the strongest in you. It's kind of like in astrology where you have a sun sign, and that is your strong, like the traits that come out most visibly to others, to others, right? And so that's your strongest archetype. Your, I almost want to call it your most dominant archetype. And that's very natural. So lots of doms will have 1, maybe 2 archetypes that come out in the beginning of their dom journey, and completely natural. And that's totally okay. And I think that it's right, actually, to develop that archetype. Let's say that it's authoritarian. I think it's very right to just keep developing that archetype for a while. But when you read the book, you will understand why it's also important to develop the other archetypes. Because if you're if you're a dominatrix who is very authoritarian driven, like you are a very strict dom who lays down the law, and you come off and your subs fear you and things like that. That's very exciting. It's very good to be that type of dom. But if you don't, let's say, have your seductress archetype developed, then the scene might feel too scary to the sub to feel erotically exciting. They might not have the opportunity to feel turned on by the scene, by you. If she doesn't have the mother archetype developed, they won't feel safe. Maybe the dom is whipping the sub, and the sub doesn't feel like she's going to provide that safe feeling, like she's going to know when to stop or know when to hold back and pull it back when she needs to, and things like that. So then the sub will end up feeling like he or she cannot completely let go. And the point of submitting is to completely let go and surrender and not worry. So being with a dom who's too much authoritarian will make it so that submission, definitely like subspace is going to be harder to hit, right? That subspace. And then if the queen archetype is missing, then that sub might be fearful of her, but not in awe of her, may not feel worshipful towards her, may not feel inspired to suffer for her. So it goes like this. Every Dom who has an archetype that comes out as their strongest archetype, that's a good thing, and keep developing that. But you must be aware of the other archetypes and start developing those at the same time, so that you don't end up being a single dimensional dominatrix, which is what ends up happening when you are just going on that one archetype, And we all know Doms like this. Some Doms are very mother archetype, and they're like overly nurturing, right? Some Doms are overly seductress archetype, and they are very sexy women, but they aren't dominant enough, you see. And so this is a very common thing in domination, very, very common, where we end up with a lot of single dimensional Doms everywhere, because they're not, the awareness isn't there about putting the energy into developing the other Doms, the other archetypes.
And I think that's part of the value of your book and this program, is that I think, people are coming in from the outside, from seeing, the media representations of dominatrixes, and so many of them look like the authoritarian. And that's all they know. That's what they think a Dom is. And they come in and not realize there's so much more there. Yes.
As a woman, you're not a single dimensional woman, so why would you be a single dimensional dominatrix? In the world, we relate to people with different sides of ourselves. So in a scene, BDSM scene, you're going to relate to the sub and connect with the sub with different sides of yourself.
Yeah, I was just going to say your ability to connect and get a deeper connection, right?
Exactly.
You open yourself up to that. The other thing too is as a professional dominatrix, you open yourself up to a bigger client base.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
And along the lines of connection, I do want to mention too that each archetype serves in a different way to connect with the sub. For example, the authoritarian is the mental connection, and the seductress is the erotic connection. The mother is the emotional connection, and the queen is the spiritual connection. And the submissive, the sub, every sub is looking for all of these types of connections with the Dom. They need all of these types of connections with the Dom. And I can go into that a little bit if you like.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, for example, the mental connection, the authoritarian archetype provides, is that the sub needs to be, when you first begin a session, you want the attention of the sub fully focused on you and fully focused on submitting to you and being here now and in the session. And so what the authoritarian does with the mental connection, she will verbally and mentally control the sub, meaning like telling the slave, okay, you are here to serve me. The purpose of you being here is to serve my needs. You are to obey me, serve me, please me. You are not to look at me in the eyes unless I give you permission. And so you're telling them exactly how you want them to be. You're not to think about anything else except for what I'm telling you. You may not put yourself in any other positions except for the one I'm putting you in now. You're in a kneeling position in front of me. And so when you're doing this to a submissive, they are feeling actually more and more relaxed because they know what to do. They're not having to guess. They don't have to guess. They're being told exactly what to do, how to be, when to speak, where to look. And so they can immediately start getting into mental subspace. And since we have a submissive here with us, Julia, do you want to sort of describe, we can go through the archetypes one by one. Do you want to sort of describe what that feels like when a Dom's authoritarian archetype comes out and does this to you?
When the authoritarian, often when I come into into a session, into play, I'm coming in from the outside world and my mind is all over the place. I want to be present, but my mind is thinking about the future, the past, how getting there. And the authoritarian, for me, helps me to get focused on being here, being right here, that nothing else, it's like the authoritarian doesn't leave room for other things. It's like this has to be your primary focus as a submissive. The authoritarian is making sure that I'm in a position I need to be in, I'm looking where I'm supposed to look, I'm thinking what I need to think. So I need that. And also there's the intimidation of the authoritarian, because you want to, she's so intimidating. It's like, oh, I have to follow her. I'm going to be really in trouble if I don't.
Yeah. You want to be with a dominant woman. And so if the sub comes to see a dom and she's just all casual, hey, how's it going? You're my new slave, huh? Or whatever. There's the dom vibe isn't there. And so the sub starts getting confused. And what is this? Is this a vanilla interaction now? What am I supposed to, so the authoritarian really takes away that confusion, takes away the second guessing. Should I be kneeling or should I be sitting or what? There's a lot of that wondering, confusion thing that happens within the mind of the submissive that the authoritarian completely removes. And then you end up feeling relaxed and free. Right, Julia?
It gets me out of my head, which is a place that I spend way too much time in anyway, and gets me where she wants me to be.
Right. It's actually let me ask you, is it actually comforting to you to know that the authoritarian archetype is coming out of a dom right when you meet her?
Yes, it absolutely is, because it's somebody taking control of everything, because it's one of the reasons that I love protocol. It's one of those things where I don't have to go, oh, am I supposed to do this or this? What am I supposed to be doing? Because I want to please. I really want to please my mistress. And not knowing how to do that, it's very unsettling. It's very unsettling. So it really does help me to be much more calm and present in the interaction.
Yeah, so the seductress archetype provides the erotic connection. And without that, it's just not as exciting. The session's not as exciting for the sub. So if you can imagine a session, let's say that there's a dom that's very strong in her authoritarian archetype. She knows how to control the sub. She's very authoritative. She's very commanding and everything like that. But if there's no erotic element, then it's just there's no turn on in the sub, right? There's the eros isn't in the scene. And specifically, what provides the eroticism in kink is, from a dominatrix, it is the sadist. So the sadist, I have to explain this because the sadist lives inside of the seductress, and the seductress in a dominatrix is one that coerces or even forces the submissive to do her bidding so that she is made sadistically happy, so she is sadistically pleased and delighted. And it's usually at the sub's expense. So that is what a seductress is. in a dominatrix. It's different from, say, like a vanilla seductress who is like a Marilyn Monroe type of person who's like, sort of sidling up to a guy and saying, oh, does that feel nice or whatever? I'm just trying to make something up because I don't really know what that feels like. But so the seductress has a sadistic element to her. And the sadism is what makes her. So sadism is pleasure. Sadism is deriving pleasure from another person's pain. And that could be physical pain, mental pain, emotional pain, psychological pain, anything like that. That is sadism. Of course, everything is consensual, right? Consensual and ethical. So if it's not BDSM. And so let's say I'm playing with you, Julia, and I'm doing something like I'm pinching your nipples. And I'm pinching your nipples and I'm smiling because I'm seeing you get a wincy face from the pain. I'm hearing you moan, from the pain. And so I get a delight, I get a pleasure from seeing your pain and from sensing your pain and your suffering. And then from you seeing the pleasure on my face and the delight in my voice, that's a turn on to you, the submissive, right? So that is why the element of the seductress, the energy of the seductress is so important to the scene. If I was just pinching your nipples as an authoritarian, and I was just saying, you take that, slave, you take that, it wouldn't be as exciting. It would be like, you'd be like, yes, mistress, you'd be obedient, right? But you tell me how that would feel to you.
It would feel, it wouldn't feel coercive or exciting. Like I was doing it because I have to follow orders and I have to follow everything that you say. That's part of what the authoritarian is giving. It's giving that, here are the rules and you have to take this. Mm-hmm. With the seductress, I want to take it because you are deriving such joy from it. And mm-hmm. seeing that in your face makes me want to take more.
Mm-hmm. Right. And if I were pinching your nipples and saying, oh, does that hurt? And you said, yes, mistress. And I said, well, then good, because I'm going to make them hurt more. And you will take that for me because I like it. I enjoy seeing you suffer for me. Then, of course, you would take it for me.
Even you just saying that now, it hits that pathway in my brain that goes, yes, mistress, I do want to.
Mm-hmm. Right. So the erotic element is what makes it so exciting and so erotic. It's what brings the eroticism energy up in the scene. And so the next archetype would be Mother Archetype, and she provides the emotional connection. And without the emotional connection, the mother is also so important because without the emotional connection and the feeling of that she is on your side, then the submissive wouldn't be able to let go and surrender themselves to the dom, which is the point of the whole thing for the submissive. They want to be able to let go. They want to be able to just they want to feel safe enough in her care, under her control, to let go and just be lost in her, right? So the emotional connection starts from before the scene even starts. The pre-scene negotiation, it could be a negotiation, it could be a conversation, it could be the dom talking to the sub and learning everything about them, learning about their personal, individual submissive psychology, their kink psychology, and then saying, oh, I think I've got your number and I'm excited to dominate you now. Something like that where you feel like she knows me. She knows me, and she is going to she's going to do this the right way. It's a feeling like that that's set up from even before you begin the scene, right? So the mother comes in at that point. The mother comes in sometimes during sessions, during inside of a session, say like very commonly immediately after a corporal scene. So the mother will come in and after the submissive takes a really good beating, mother will say, "You did such a good job taking pain for me. Wow, you took a lot of pain for me. I'm proud of you. You know, good slave, good boy, good girl," something like that. That could come in during the middle because you need something. I mean, after doing something, after a huge feat like suffering for the dom during a corporal scene, that's a lot to take. So some sort of acknowledgement from the dom in the mother archetype way would be a good thing. And then also, she comes in at the end in the aftercare. The aftercare looks different for every submissive. She could be very, very nurturing. She could hold them, pet them, and say, "I'm proud of you. You are such a good slave. You're so obedient. You took so much for me," etc., like that. Or if the submissive only needs like a very light form of acknowledgement at the end, "Good job, slave. I will allow you to serve me again, and I will guide you to be the best slave for me." Something brief like that. That is mother archetype. Mother archetype is nurturing. She provides guidance. And also, like all archetypes, there's a dark and light side, right? So it runs along a spectrum. Light mother is very nurturing. Dark mother is a disappointed mother. But that's still important. Something like, "I'm very disappointed that you forgot the positions that I taught you. I don't want to teach you again. I don't want to exert the energy to teach you all over again. Well, I'm going to punish you for that so that you will learn, so that you know your positions and that I don't have to reteach you. You will remember everything that I taught you." Or she could sound like, "Shame on you. Shame on you for making me wait. You showed up late to session. That's not the way to act as a slave." Something like that would be a dark mother. Very much like how the mother archetypes that you see in movies where there's a disappointed dark mother, like in a Mommy Dearest. That's an example of a dark mother. And, I provide all these kind of on-screen examples in my book as well. Someone like a Mrs. Brady in the Brady Bunch would be a light mother. Yeah. So why don't you, Julia, tell us why the mother archetype is so important to you as the submissive?
Well, I love how you say she comes in at the beginning. And in my mind, she is kind of an undertone throughout the entire session. Because some of the things that you're putting us through can be scary, can be painful, can be, intimidating. And we have to know, in order for us, you said, in order for us to let go, in order for me to let go, I need to feel safe. And it goes beyond physical safety. It's like physical safety, emotional safety, spiritual safety.
Mm-hmm.
Because what we do is it can be so extreme. There has to be massive trust for me to let go. And I think without the mother, that trust would be really, really difficult to come by.
Right. And you may have experienced being with some doms where the mother archetype is not very developed, and you're just on guard, as a submissive. You're sort of not being able, and when you're like that, you're not able to drop fully into subspace, right?
It changes the depth that I'm able to go, because, I'm not able to, I mean, the best scenario is I fully let go. I fully let go. My power is, I don't have an ounce of power. I've given it all to you. And then I can drop really deep. But that's not going to happen if I don't really, really trust that you are going to take really good care of me. You're going to take me some places. You may take me some scary places, but I know you're on my side and you're doing it because ultimately you do want what's best for me.
Yeah, right. And the mother archetype does say that. I know what's best for you. And also, mother archetype, when I want my submissive to really just let go of that fear or that anxiety or nervousness before a corporal scene, say, I'll say to my sub, "Do you trust me?" And then they'll, "Of course I trust you, mistress." Then they'll realize that they can let go, because they'll realize their own they'll feel their own feeling of trust in me.
I love that you bring it up. You remind them that they trust you, that because they, a scene goes on and they may get into a certain headspace and need to be reminded, no, you trust me. And it's like, oh, that's right. I really, really do.
Right. And, most of the time I don't ask questions to the subs. I turn my questions into commands to sort of like mind control them. But the "do you trust me" line, that question, I do leave it as a question. I feel like it is more powerful as a question.
I feel like sometimes you say it too as more of a statement, knowing the answer.
Do you trust me, remember? Or you
Right.
trust me, don't you? Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, just to throw in the word trust in there, in the scene, to remind them that they do trust me. Okay, so the last archetype is the queen archetype, and she provides the spiritual connection. And this is super important, the spiritual connection. The whole experience of being with the dominatrix is an otherworldly spiritual experience for the submissive, especially if you're getting in deep subspace and things like that. The submissive wants to feel like this dominant woman is a higher being, is a woman that they're putting above them, that they see as being higher than them. So, if you're not worshipful of a dominatrix, you're not going to be as inspired to want to do all these things for her. You want to be in awe of the dom that you're serving. You don't want to see her as an ordinary woman. It's more difficult to submit to someone who you see as an ordinary woman, rather than someone who is a higher being. So this is the archetype where I feel that the divine dark feminine energies really comes through. You want to speak to it, Julia?
It's so rooted for me in what submission is, because I see the dom as a divine being, as this. So it is a very spiritual, excuse me, a very spiritual thing for me. I want to be in awe. I want to feel that she is so superior to me that it's that need to worship. which I think is really present in so many of us, this need to worship something. I worship the dark divine feminine in the dom that I'm serving, in the dom that I'm playing with. To see her as more than in just who she is. Like, she doesn't have to necessarily do anything to be that divine being. She just has to feel it and express it in herself, and I will see it. I will want to worship. It's so important to me.
Yes, you don't want to serve a woman who you see as your equal. I've heard this from subs before. Oh, she's she's in the friend zone for me, and I can't really submit to her because she's sort of I've friend zoned her, and so you don't want to be that. You don't want to be an equal with your submissive. You want to be above them, and that's where they want you as well.
And it's something that's always there. Like Mistress Damiana, you and I are very close, and we've talked about many, many things, but that separation, my awe of you never changes, never diminishes. We're never equals. And that is the way that I feel it should be. I know I have a lot of friends who are doms, and I keep them in that place. I keep them on that pedestal, and they keep themselves on that pedestal. And it makes the relationship very clear.
Mm-hmm. It's a healthy inequality because we are in a DS dynamic. This is a femdom world. This is what makes it special. If we remove that and everybody was equal, then that specialness would go away.
And also, I just feel like it can't just be there during play. For me personally, mm-hmm. It can't just show up during play. It has to be there kind of all the time.
Mm-hmm. Right. And, I'll have clients where we'll come out of session and they'll be dressed in their clothes, business clothes. They're ready to go back to work or whatever it is. And then we'll be more on a kind of equal level and, give each other hugs goodbye and things like that. And that's totally fine because that's the dynamic that I have with them. But it's different when you have personal submissives. The relationship's different.
And that makes sense, right? And that's beautiful too. Like, this warms my heart. Listening to both of you right now, this just warms my heart.
And I also want to say that the Queen archetype is the archetype that when a dom embodies that archetype, and she it's developed very strongly in her, that's the archetype she carries with her throughout her day-to-day life. In other areas of life, outside of scene sessions, into other areas of her life, she will hold herself like the queen in the dominatrix. Like, that's how she is, and that's why this work is so transformative. We've seen this over and over again with the academies with the doms that graduate from the academy. They are transformed because the archetypes are developed in them. And then the queen is the one that they take with them into their lives.
You make an interesting point there, and it takes me into a little bit of a segue. How can we apply this to female-led relationships?
Oh, it's absolutely applied in the same way. I mean, what we teach, the archetypes is a framework that you can apply to any femdom DS relationship, and it could be in a scene, within a scene that you do with your submissive, or outside of it as well. Like, we have many couples who are in the academy, and I say they're couples in the academy because when a woman is in a female-led relationship, her submissive also benefits from being sort of like in the academy in a way, right? Everything she learns, she transfers into their relationship. So I have an example that comes to mind of a dom. Her name is Mistress Mystique, who is in a full-on FLR 24/7 relationship with her husband, and she says that it's so magical because she, there's all this protocol in place, all these rituals that they have in their day-to-day lives, where after work they'll come home, he will draw a bath for her every night, serve his queen. She will order him around, and so her queen is coming out, her authoritarian is coming out. She will tease him every night because she keeps him in chastity, and she has kept him in ongoing chastity for, I think she let him come like once in 3 years.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
I love it.
Yes, I know. But what she does is she loves taking him out of that cage every night, and she teases him and plays with her property until the point where he is begging to come, and then nope, not today. She locks it right back up. So her seductress is coming out there, and her mother archetype is always there because she's a very nurturing person, and it's just lovely. It's so lovely. It's brought in the FLR relationships that I've seen. It works so well because what you're doing in the training of the submissive, of the slave, is that you're training the ego out of them. And what that does is that makes a very evolved slave and partner. I mean, we can all kind of see what that would look like, right? So there's no ego there in the submissive. There's no ego. There's no and the training is ongoing. Once the submissive feels like, hey, I want to argue back with this point or whatever. And if he continues to do some inner training in himself and say, okay, no, I don't want to talk back here because that'll just make things worse, or whatever. I mean, my goodness, that submissive is coming from their higher self rather than their ego self. And relationships like this are so much more evolved,
Yeah. You talk about the 3 secret keys to domination. So language, energy, and personalization. How can we cultivate and strengthen these? And can you kind of dig into those a little bit further?
Oh, sure. So domination language, and I put the word domination in front of each of those words: domination language, domination energy, domination personalization. Domination language is so important to learn because, and that's what we do in the academy, is we are constantly changing your language to become, we're giving you suggestions on how to up level your language to sound even more dominant, because when you speak as a dominatrix, you sound completely different than when you would speak to like your friend, or anyone else in your life. So to learn how to speak the language of a dominatrix is very special. And so that comes in so many various ways. You want to speak in a commanding way, in a way that sounds like I have a lesson in my academy, and it's the first one in language is dominant tone commanding language. And what that sounds like is speaking to my slave, sweet girl, go get me a glass of water.
Yes, mistress.
That is domination language. And here's an example of non-dominant language, so Julia, I'm really thirsty. So when you get a chance, just will you go get me a glass of water? There's too much muddled. I'm making a request rather than making a command. There's too much filler language in there. I'm calling her Julia rather than sweet girl. there's a lot of stuff in there that I can remove. So I ended my sentence in an uptone, in a question mark, rather than a period, which is a statement. Go get me that glass of water. Now, I'm thirsty. Don't keep me waiting. That's dominant language. So these are the ways that when you learn how to speak more dominantly, you will remove filler language. You will remove sounding like you're making a request in that uptone and things like that. Those are the some general rules of dominant language, right? There's many, many, many more. Dominant energy. So dominant energy is sounding like I'm meaning what I'm saying. So if I give Julia a command, but I don't sound like I mean it, then it won't work. Let me just think of one. I'm trying to think of a different sentence than the one I just... Okay, Julia, I enjoy hurting your nipples. Okay, so here is where I put dominant energy into it. Sweet girl, your nipples belong to me. I enjoy hurting them because I enjoy seeing that pained look in your face, knowing that you are hurting for me. So in that way I'm saying it, it's obvious that I've got dominant energy in there, in the way that I'm making my voice sound like I'm enjoying what I'm doing. The first way, I didn't sound like I was enjoying it, right? I was just saying the words. Saying the words is different from meaning the words or sounding like I mean the words. So that's the energy part. And so that's very important because in the beginning, when some doms are learning how to dominate, they sound like they're reading from a script. And that doesn't quite feel connecting enough to the submissive. They sound like they're just speaking the words but not meaning the words, right? So that's something just to be aware of. So don't sound like you're reading a script or just saying the words. Personalization.
And I...
Yes, go ahead, Julia.
And I always say, if you're getting into that, where you're just kind of saying the words and sound like you're reading a script, stop and feel the submissive in front of you. Feel that submissive energy. Get present, because all of a sudden then you'll get into your dominant energy.
Right. As a dom, when you're just all in your head, you're not connecting with the submissive. You're all in your head. You're thinking about what to say next. And so then the submissive doesn't feel that connection. But when you stop and connect with the sub and you say those words again, and you're saying them from your body, like that's where the energy is coming from your body, from your heart, from your being, right? Then that sub in front of you will feel that you mean those words. And so the personalization part is what we were talking about earlier with how important submissive psychology is. Personalization is where when you dominate, you are personalizing what you're saying to that submissive in front of you. You are personalizing your statements about their kinks, their fetishes, their fantasies, what type of submissive they are. Are they more of a bottom? Are they more of a submissive? Are they more of a are they into being feminized? Are they are they into being humiliated? Whatever their kinks are, you got to understand those things. I don't have the book in front of me, but there's some more things on there, like personalizing your language. Like for example, I call sweet girl instead of say pet or something else. There's some doms that call everybody pet, and that's not really personal because the submissive doesn't really feel connected to that term, right? And so those are the types of things you want to, and when you personalize your domination, your submissive feels like you're with them and you're with them and only them. Yeah. Do you have anything to speak to this about, Julia?
Well, I think it's vital because I've been with doms who, and we've kind of touched on this before, where it's cookie cutter. they're doing to me, I was at a play party and somebody did to me what they had just done to the person they played with before me, the exact same thing. I don't feel like she saw me. She didn't feel my energy. She didn't go, oh, she's not enjoying this. She's not responding to this.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't playing with me. It was just playing with someone. And we've brought it up again and again here today. Connection.
Mm-hmm.
Connection is everything. That's what this is all about. And it has to be personal.
Yeah.
It makes or breaks the scene, right?
Mm-hmm. And even if that person is someone who's really into the fantasy of being a number or being degraded and being ignored and all of that, even with someone like that, you have to customize and personalize.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You have a breakdown, an 80-20 breakdown. Can you talk a little bit about that in your book of kind of what the breakdown is for success in being a femdom, having a great scene, having a great connection?
Yes. So I talk about the fact that a BDSM scene, when it is a DS scene, not necessarily in when we're talking top bottom is a whole nother way of playing, right? So we're talking about domination scenes. It has to be 80% psychology and 20% of the skill, of the physical skill.
Mm-hmm.
In order for it to be domination. We're talking about domination as the art of domination. And so everything that we've talked about today is actually that 80%. It's all of the archetypes, it's the dominant language, dominant energy, domination, personalization. All of that is the 80%. Because this is an energy exchange. DS is an energy exchange. Mm-hmm. And so energy is all of that stuff that is kind of unseen, right? The non-physical. And so it's really what creates that magic, of it. It's what creates it. It's what makes it domination. I hope I'm describing it the right way. The 20% is very important as well, because a dominatrix has to be skilled in all of the things. Even if you have one skill, even if you are a dom that just holds a crop in your hand, if you don't know how to use that crop properly, then you're not going to come off as dominant. If you're speaking the talk and you're dominating, and you're saying, and you act very, very dominant, but your cropping is weak or it's the wrong technique or something, then that's not going to hold up as well. So that's not saying that 20% isn't important. It is.
Right. The reason I wanted to highlight this is really just to highlight the importance of the psychological aspect, and also to highlight the importance of understanding the submissive and not just kind of going the route of, well, I know what I'm doing. I'm very skilled. My hard skills I've got down. I've got the flogging down. I can Florentine. I can whip. I can single tail. I can all these things. That's not going to provide a successful scene necessarily. You may be extremely talented in that aspect, but if you're looking for a long-term connection, play partner, DS situation, long-term client, you really do need to get into the mind of your submissive and spend some time there to really learn and appreciate, but also what you're doing, get feedback.
Yeah.
and work with the submissive.
Mm-hmm. And that's not always possible, like with clients and things like that. But talk to other
Yeah.
submissives. Talk to other
exactly.
experienced submissives. And, when you say the word long-term, I think that what you mean is long-term in you, the Dom.
Yes.
And because even if you have a one-time client, you want to dominate the hell out of that client in that one scene, even if it's their one scene they have in their whole life. But you want to deliver. You want to deliver.
Yes.
And
yeah. You want to have a great scene.
You want to have a great scene.
You want to come out of that
exactly
with, this was wonderful. This was a wonderful experience for the submissive. It was safe. It was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, wonderful for you too.
Yeah.
You both came out of it feeling great.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, I wanted to say too that if you have the hard skills, but you only have you have your spanking technique down and some bondage techniques, but you have the whole psychological aspect and the whole energy, all of the things that we've been talking about, you can still have a really powerful domination scene. But if you just had 80% of the hard skills and only 20% of the psychological, it's going to be very, very difficult to have a really powerful, successful scene, have an impact on somebody's life.
Yeah, but to have that connection, right? That true exchange, that true energy.
And even if it's just
connection.
even if that connection only lasts a minute. I mean, I've asked all my subs, the sub coaches especially, would you rather be with a Dom who is dominating you psychologically and deeply because she knows who you are and she's got your number, and she's doing no skills at all, no physical skills at all? Or would you rather be with a Dom who is really good at the flogging and, super great techniques, but she's not connecting with you and she's not dominating you? Like, who would you rather be with? And 100% of the time, they pick the one who is more skilled at the domination and no
makes
skills.
Sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
There's the thrill right there. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Can you talk a little bit about your mission behind this book?
Yeah. Well, like I said in the beginning, my mission, the reason why I wrote this book is to give people an idea, and this is everyone in the public. I want them to know what a true dominatrix is, and what we are. We are multidimensional, intricate, powerful women. It's not just what you see on the screen, on TV, or in the movies. We are actually healers. Later on in the book, I get into how we are light workers, actually. Like, when you develop your archetypes, you become a light worker and you are healing your sub, whether you know it or not. And that's the truth. Would you agree with that, Miss Drea?
I would.
Yeah.
Especially because we talked about this on the last episode. Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I really want the world to know now at this time. I think it's time for the world to know what a true dominatrix is. So that's why I wrote the book, and I put it out at this time because after training so many students in the academy for a few years now, the material it got to a point where it was pouring out of me. It had to come out and get all written down. So,
well, I'm so glad that you, with your crazy scheduling, found the time to put the pen to paper and let the words flow.
Thank you.
If you could, what are the 3 takeaways that you would have a reader walk away with from your book?
Let's see. Well, it's off the top of my head. I would say that if the craft of domination speaks to you and you are a woman that you feel like there is a dom inside of you that wants to come out, I would say it is absolutely do it, because not only is this like, it's a fun connecting thing that we can do with our submissives, but domination, when done in this way, when done consciously, ethically, and to this sort of like high degree of consciousness, it is the most healing thing that you can do for yourself. I sometimes say that being a dominatrix is the biggest self-love exercise that I've ever found. So if you feel called, explore it. You know, it's something that will bring you to who you truly are. That's one thought I have about that. Let's see, I'm trying to think about takeaways with submissives. You know, when you do female domination consciously like this, it will make your heart open. It will make you understand how to love another human being in a way that you never have before. And I'm curious, Miss Drea, if that happened to you.
Yeah.
Before your dom life and after.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, it opened up all new avenues, I would say.
Yeah.
All new avenues and ways of loving.
Yeah.
And connecting.
Mm-hmm.
And connecting for sure.
Yeah, right. And that is a huge gift for oneself. It was a huge gift to me to have all those avenues of love open up, and then of course it's a gift to the other too.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm trying to think of a third takeaway.
if you don't have a third, that's fine. I mean, I can share a third.
Yes, please.
I would say pick up the book. I'm listening to it as an audible. I prefer that versus reading. I think it's fantastic. I recommend the Academy too. We dug into that in a previous episode. But this book, I mean, just kind of digging into the archetypes, and also, you know, recognizing, oh, this is totally me, but understanding how you do kind of need to take that multi-dimensional approach to level up your game.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much.
And how to lean into that, you know, and taking the approach of having the submissive be part of that growth.
From a submissive perspective, it will show you, the book will help show you who you are as a submissive, because it shows you're able to understand the archetypes, where the doms are coming from, and go, oh, I know what I'm attracted to, what affects me, what moves me. And you'll be able to have more agency to seek that out in your life, and also to advocate for yourself.
Yes. Yes. I was going to say that too. Yes.
That's probably a really big one for submissives, especially, and this is important for our audience too, right? Because we have, you know, a lot of newbie kinksters as part of our audience. And I would say this book is great for folks that are new to the scene, as well as folks that aren't, that are, you know, seasoned kinksters. But I would say especially for submissives that are new to the scene, that might be kind of timid about, this is what I like. This is, you know, these are limits for me, because they're so eager to please.
Yes. Thank you for saying that, Julia, about the submissives being able to advocate for themselves, because I think subs don't think that they can do that oftentimes. Yeah.
It's something that's taken me years years in the scene to learn that advocating for myself is not only necessary, but it's also very attractive to DOMs. Knowing that I will advocate for myself and take care of myself, it frees them up to know that, oh, okay, here's someone who's going to state they're going to have their boundaries. They're going to have they know what they are. That frees them up to go, oh, well, then I can go this far.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Thank you, Julia. And thank you, Miss Drea, for saying that, for recommending the book and the audiobook. I also want to say that I did record the audible version because I'm also an Audible listener. I listen to my books as well. And I felt that it was important for me to narrate the book myself because of that energy that I was talking about, for me to convey my own words in my voice, I think adds another dimension to it. So, so that's why I did that. I also want to say that anyone who has gone through the book and they feel called to mentor with me personally, that would be a wonderful next step to your domination journey. Your as a dominatrix, as like Miss Drea said, you can be a seasoned dominatrix who wants to hone up on your language skills, or a beginning dom who hasn't had it and you don't have any bad habits to start with, so it's a very good place to start. But I can say that even seasoned doms, because my ears are so trained, and the sub coach's ears are so trained to critique, we pick up on things all the time in seasoned doms, and we think like, wow, like that could have been better said this way. Yeah.
But see, that's great. That's great. Because we should always all continue to be learning, right?
Yes, the dom journey is a continuing, lifelong journey. We're always learning. I'm always learning. And I learn a lot from being in my academy myself. So, as a teacher, we always learn as we teach. And so it has been a benefit to me personally as well.
If you mentioned seeking you out as a mentor, if someone is interested in that, how should they get in contact with you?
Well, if you want to become a mentee of mine, you just go to the Academy website, which is academy.theevolutionarydominatrix.com. And on that website, you can see all the information about the Academy, but there is also a link at the very top that says Apply Now. And when you click that link, it will take you to the application page. And then that's where you apply. So not everyone gets approved, but if you are a fit for the Academy, then you will get approved, and then we will go from there. But I mean, really all you need to be is, you have to have some sort of basic knowledge about BDSM and femdom. You have to be a person who is, a good person, because this is a very wonderful community of women that we have here. And so we want you to be a good fit in that way too. It's the most amazing group of women that we're so blessed to be around all the time, and we help each other. The Dom sisters are, they say it all the time. They're like, there's no other community like this, where there's so much sisterhood, like real sisterhood. And we share information, there's no gatekeeping. It's very much like we lift each other up in this community.
That's awesome. That sounds wonderful. So we are going to go into kind of the silly part of the interview. And I'm not going to make Julia do this part because you are her mistress and she would be absolutely mortified to ask you some of these questions.
And she would have to get punished.
She would get severely punished. And although I'm an absolute sadist, I'm going to be nice on this one.
Miss Drea, you're not helping the situation. You're making her want me to ask.
Yeah, I like that too. But I want to say thank you so much for taking us through the book. I am so happy that you did put pen to paper and get your thoughts out and your lessons out and your insight out, because it's wonderful. I do highly recommend it. All right, we're going to have some fun. This is called Rapid Fire, and it's just a few questions. This is just designed to say the first thing that comes to mind. Just blurt it out.
Okay.
I warned you, it could get raunchy.
Okay. We like that.
So here we go. All right, rapid fire. How to make you laugh.
Oh my God. A submissive who is, okay. I pied a submissive recently and I poured honey all over him. And I made him watch movies of this girl that he has a crush on. And we pretended like she was watching him as he was getting humiliated. So that was hilarious. And that always makes me laugh is humiliation.
Love it. Yes. How to feed you.
How to feed me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't actually like to be fed. I don't have a recent, immediately the image of Cleopatra being fed grapes comes to mind, but I've actually have never had a submissive do that before, because I feel like I like to feed my subs. I feel like it's a very dominant act to feed someone. So I like to do the feeding rather than being fed.
Best curse word.
I don't know, because all curse words are good. Curse words are we talking about like profanity, like when you're mad or something?
Yeah. But it has to be like your go-to.
Oh, well, okay.
I mean, if it's not profanity, whatever your go-to
then it has to be fuck, because fuck is the ultimate like multi-use word in all types of scenarios. Yes.
Yes. I feel like it's all purpose. Biggest turn on.
My biggest turn on is force. I guess it's forcing someone to do what they absolutely do not want to do.
How to make you squirm.
Okay. How to make me what comes to mind is toxic masculinity. It's an icky one. It icks me out. It just
Little known fact about you.
Gosh, I don't know. I've said a lot of things.
It doesn't need to be kink related.
Yeah. Okay. I make homemade dog food for my dogs.
Nice. And what does it consist of?
So I am primarily vegan. And so for the first time in my life, I'm cooking meat for my dogs. I'm cooking meat in my kitchen, I have made salmon for my younger daughter who does enjoy that. But actual like beef and stuff, I have not done that until I started doing this in recent months. So I put it all in my Instant Pot. That's what makes it easy, but it is time consuming. But I love my dogs.
Instant Pots are great.
I have 4 animals. I have 2 dogs, 2 cats. And so I spoil them. I treat them with, I make them really healthy organic food, just like I would my children. Right. So yeah.
Good. Was that hard smelling the meat cooking?
No, I don't really judge, like meat eaters and things like that. I go into my parents' house and they're eating meat, they're cooking meat, and it's not a thing.
Yeah. Nice. All right. Well, that was our rapid fire. Mr. Damiana, thank you so much for joining us today and making the time.
It was a true honor, Miss Drea. I'm so pleased and honored to have been invited by you. It's been I feel spoiled by you that we talked about all of this content, all related to my book in this 2-hour conversation. It's amazing.
I know we went long, but you know what? We love talking to you, and it's always so insightful, and it's always a great conversation.
Yeah, I'm so happy to have this conversation with you too. Very, very happy.
Absolutely. I hope that we can have you back again, because it's always, like I said, a great conversation, and you always provide so much information and great tips for everybody, and it's always a hit. Definitely.
I would absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
That said, catch our next episode. You can find us wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, and follow us on Instagram at S3X_sin_sensibility, or on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it now, at sexsinsensible1, or on the interwebs at sexsinandsensibility.com. If you have questions or ideas for topics you'd like to hear, DM us at Instagram.
Until then, my lovelies, be sexy and be safe. Special thanks to the Muerte Men for our music. Check out the Muerte Men at muertemen.com. That's MUERTEMEN.com.
This podcast is fully supported by my Patreon members. Your patronage is much appreciated. As a member of my Patreon community, you'll be able to connect with me in fun ways, like participating on the Q&A episodes, BDSM live domination episodes, access to my private Telegram group where you can ask me questions every week, and do one-on-one personal video chats. Become a member by going to patreon.com/damianachiphd. I'd like to send out special thanks and shout-outs to the following Patreon members. Your support means so much to me, and it feels so good to know that what I'm doing is appreciated by you. It is an honor to contribute to my beloved kink community. Richard, Black Orchid, Meg, Shay, L, Daniel R, P, Caroline, Sadie S, Nick, Soul Tramp, Mark, McKenna G, Eva, Nipples, Ms. Coco 1111, Luna C, Gayla, Lady Sublime, Mistress Nicole, Julian S, Mystic Dax, U.E. Crump, Vincent V, Divine Diva, Tom, Sweet Girl Julia, G.S., Jake, DJW, Pussy, Andre, Bill Bumpus, Michael, Tracy C, Betty, Richard Tackett, Domina Flora, and many thanks to the editor, Sweet Girl Julia.